After the optics and symbolism of day one, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has begun his official engagement in Delhi. He began day two with a ceremonial reception at Rashtrapati Bhavan. Speaking at the location, Netanyahu thanked PM Modi for the warm welcome and said that this is a dawn of a new era in friendship between India and Israel. He is expected to hold bilateral talks and sign agreement on oil and gas and renewable energy, science and technology cooperation later today.
Dawn of a new era in the great friendship between India and Israel. It began with Prime Minister Modi's historic visit to Israel, which created tremendous enthusiasm. It continues with my visit here, which I must say is deeply moving for my wife and me and for the entire people of Israel. And I think it heralds a flourishing of our partnership to bring prosperity and peace and progress for both our peoples.
PM Netanyahu is accompanied by a 130-member delegation drawn from the cyber and agricultural sector as well as from defense. On the second day of Israeli Prime Minister visit, the two countries are also likely to discuss defense, cyber security and innovation, agriculture, Ayurveda, cooperation in water technology. And I'm joined by my colleague Ramesh Ramachandran from Delhi. Ramesh, what's on the plate today?
Well, Karthikeya, the delegation-level talks are expected to begin at about noon here in New Delhi, followed by the joint press statement and the signing of agreements. We begin to understand that at least 9 MOUs can be expected to be signed towards the end of the talks between Prime Ministers Modi and Netanyahu, including in the areas, as you mentioned, oil and gas, renewable energy, industrial research, aviation, cybersecurity, investments, and also joint production of films. So clearly, an all-encompassing agenda for the two leaders, especially in terms of India's interest in defense and security and agriculture, water conservation, and so on.
Thank you, Ramesh. You stay with me. I'm also joined by Maya Javed, for Middle East analyst. He joins me from Tel Aviv. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. How do you see this visit of Israel's Prime Minister, Mr. Netanyahu, and his trip to India panning out? A lot of editorials were written and some said that, well, the business is going to be very transactional. So my question to you is there a paradigmatic shift or it remains business as usual?
I think it's a paradigmatic shift that a country as important as India is hosting the Prime Minister of Israel for 6 days after a very successful visit by Prime Minister Modi 6 months ago to Israel. I can tell you that when Prime Minister Modi visited Israel, I've never ever seen such excitement and such a successful visit and such a welcome by Israeli public. We usually see this kind of excitement in Israel when the President of the United States visits Israel, for understandable reasons. There's a huge Jewish community in America, and also we've had very long relationship with the United States for the last almost 70 years. But considering the fact that we've already had 25 years of diplomatic relations with India, the relations between the two countries are every time, with every visit, moving to a new area of stronger cooperation, not just political but economic, defense, but also from various reports, also intelligence exchange as well. So all in all, I would say this is a paradigm shift in terms of relations, especially for the state of Israel to have such improving relations with a country as important as India.
But what is the edifice of this relationship? A lot of people would say that, you know, India also has its own responsibility, position, prior commitment when it comes to other countries in West Asia. But what explains this change in the language, tone, tenor, and the relationship between India and Israel post 1991?
I think what's important is that the two countries have complementing competitive advantage in the market, which actually can find a niche. For example, the state of Israel has a very booming defense industry and also agriculture, and these are two industries that have been viewed as important in the development plans for India. And for Israel, India has incredible information technology market. It has very advanced energy companies. Let's not forget that in Israel, we only explored gas in the last 7 years. We don't have much experience in that field, but India has a long experience in the energy sector, in the refining sector, and also India has very good relations with many countries in the region, which we don't, especially in the Middle East. So it complements each other. Also in India's chemical industry, India has a very advanced chemical industry, which is very important for the state of Israel, again, which is something that is not our competitive advantage. But also at the same time, the issue that we can help with India with is also investment or various funds in Israel looking to invest in India.
Ramesh, who still happens to be with me. Ramesh, tell me, the Prime Minister is going to spend 2 more days in India. He's going to have a meeting with the business honchos in Mumbai. There's a meeting in Delhi. What sort of business and defense MOUs are we looking forward to? Can you elaborate on the area of cooperation, Ramesh?
Well, Karthikeya, there is no formal or likelihood of an agreement in the area of defense just yet. Remember, the $500 million Spike anti-tank guided missile deal is still a work in progress. Although it's been cancelled for now, Israel remains hopeful of clinching the deal going forward. So talks can be expected to take place on defense procurement and sales and transfer of technology. But they're not likely to be signed during this visit. But as you mentioned, Karthikeya, that 100-odd delegation from the business and chambers of commerce in Israel are accompanying Prime Minister Netanyahu to India. And they can be expected to hold talks on the margins of the visit. Remember, the defense contractor Rafale is also part of the delegation. So talks will take place today, tomorrow, and the next few weeks going forward on the issue of the pending defense deals. But that said, the big focus will firmly remain on innovation, cooperation in strategic areas such as agriculture and water, which are 2 key issues very close to Prime Minister Modi's heart. Remember, when he visited Israel as Chief Minister of Gujarat, he was taken in by the advancements in Israel in the fields of agriculture, drip irrigation, water conservation, and he wants Israel to become a partner for India in these 2 key areas going forward. So defense, agriculture, water, culture, Bollywood films, health, education, people-to-people ties, all of these items will be on the agenda when the 2 leaders meet here later this afternoon.
So what you're saying is that apart from ideological and symbolic and also personal, there is a lot of tangible on plate.
Absolutely, a lot of convergences between Israel and India. Remember, Karthikeya, India is one country which does not carry a historical baggage vis-a-vis Israel, unlike many countries around the world, including in Europe. So there are a lot of convergences, complementarities, between India and Israel, and both countries will seek to harness that going forward. Remember, they've already completed 25 years of diplomatic ties, and the forward-looking agenda will set the course, as it were, for the next 25 years as well.
I think that's a very relevant point you made, Ramesh. Now, going back to my esteemed guest from Tel Aviv, Ramesh is saying that there are a lot of tangibles in the area of cooperation. Do you feel that this convergence also happened because the world faces the issue of Islamic terrorism? It binds India and Israel together in terms of priorities, information, intelligence, and strategic concerns?
Extremist Islamic extremism. Islam is a peaceful religion, but unfortunately some extremists try to take advantage. Yes, that's one important issue. I think we also have to remember that during the Kargil war, during the Kargil conflict, Israel came to India. It was the only country that stood with India, that also we supplied weapons to India at that important juncture in India's history, and I think that was very important. But I think another issue which is very important for India is the threat of Pakistan. Although we don't have any animosity towards Pakistan, the Pakistani government on numerous occasions, some of the extremist movements, not the Pakistani government, have had very strong anti-Israel sentiments. We remember what they did, the extremist Muslims in Pakistan to the Jewish journalist Daniel Pearl. And we saw recently that the Pakistani extremist organization Defy Pakistan hosted the head of the outlawed Pakistani terrorist organization which carried the Mumbai massacre. And at that meeting, the Palestinian representative was present. And I think these issues bring Israel and India even closer together.
I think you made a very relevant point. But Ramesh, coming to you, and that's a political question. When we talk about relationship between India and Israel, it has seen its ups and downs. But if you look at the prime ministers, they have made a difference. The full relationship was established when Narasimha Rao went on to become the Prime Minister. And Narasimha Rao was not part of the Nehruvian consensus. He represented something else. So when we talk about India and Israel, we talk about a change in paradigm. So is it okay to say that this relationship also defies the sort of breaks the Nehruvian consensus which existed from 1950s, 60s and 70s and 80s?
Well, Karthikeya, a hallmark of India's foreign policy over the decades has been continuity. Be it any government in power in India, most political parties have chosen to maintain continuity insofar as India's foreign policy is concerned, especially engagements with countries such as Israel and others in West Asia. Now, that said, Prime Minister Modi for himself takes a lot of time, energy and effort to invest in personalized diplomacy with world leaders, including Prime Minister Netanyahu, and the personal chemistry was on full display when Prime Minister Modi made a historic visit to Israel in July last year, and we saw it this time as well yesterday at the airport in New Delhi when Prime Minister Modi personally received Prime Minister Netanyahu at the New Delhi airport. So clearly, as far as personal chemistry goes, they are right there at the top. But also another important factor, Karthikeya, to bear in mind is that India has chosen consciously to de-hyphenate its ties with Israel and Palestine, and thereby they mean that India will pursue ties with both Israel and Palestine independent of each other. In other words, two separate tracks, and that holds true also for other countries in the Arab world and especially in Persian Gulf region, namely Iran.
Thank you. Thank you, Ramesh, and thank you, Mr. Meera Zazzanagar from Tel Aviv. Thank you very much. Now, moving on, in a news which is as disturbing as Nirbhaya was when UPA was in power, UP2 was in power in India. A 15-year-old girl was gang raped in Haryana. The 15-year-old girl's mutilated body was found in Jind district in Haryana last week, and a post-mortem report has revealed that she was gang raped. Doctors noted at least 19 injuries on her body and also said her liver was ruptured as foreign body was inserted inside her body. The girl went missing earlier this week.